Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we've got Irafaan here. Irafaan is an avid athlete. He's also got a kind heart. He goes out certain evenings and they go feed the homeless. And he's also involved with cancer patients and helping out where they can with cancer patients and so on. Welcome, Irafaan. Um, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Which schools you went to? And how it is that you are who you are. And also, who influenced your life? Who played a role in what you're doing? And who was the role models in your life, to give them also a little bit of acknowledgement. I hand it over to you, and you can go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the opportunity. But I must first say thanks to Allah above giving me the opportunity to come and share my story. And for me, when I start, I say to remain humble. And what I say is what comes from the heart. And I'd like to share that with everybody here. And that what we speak and what we do is not through ourselves, but through just the form of God that we work. Absolutely. And we all from the same being and the same spirit. And I think we don't have to make any differentiation with that there's one God and we all believe in God, and that's what our purpose in life is here. And everything else that comes from that, I feel is just blessings that have come. And Said Reiters, well, I told him I'm just going to a very good friend, a hero within himself in the community of Mitchell's Plain, and especially high school learners, and for him to pass on the invitation through himself to me, I'm humbled for that, and I'm truly thankful that one can have friends like him, and feel that I could do justice to what it is that you're trying to achieve with your Unsung Hero program. So I hope I'm gonna try and entertain in the sense of just telling a true story and finding ourselves where we are today, and to try and inspire many others. And my passion lies with sport and education, as I'm an educator as well. So if there are teachers there that have stories to be told, they just need to come out of the shell and tell the stories, because a teacher can write millions of books. Because every day there's a new picture to paint, there's a new learner to just get out of the shells, there's new learners to uplift. And teachers play an amazing and important role. And I think that was my destiny. As much as I wanted to think of everything else, being a film star, yeah, that's or definitely not a singer. And being a professional sports person was what what we were passionate about. I think without a doubt, I found my niche in life 28 years ago when I started teaching. And to tell you a little bit about myself. Born and bred in a street called Lady May Street in Garlandale. Not as flashy as a suburb as what it is today. We are 4 siblings. I have two other brothers, elder brothers, and a sister who's also an educator. And we grew up at number 10 Lady May Street in a garage.
Wow.
So the first 14 years of my life, we lived as a happy family in a garage that was separated only by a partition that separated mom and dad's section of the garage. The middle section was the kitchen area, and the third section was where the boys, and then afterwards my sister, where we shared. We had an outside bathroom. Okay, and I share this because that is what's made me today. That the way we grew up was in a way that my father and my mother, within that poverty-stricken environment that we were in, we never felt poor, if I can put it that way. We felt rich within who we were amongst ourselves. And even though growing up as a young boy, there were always things that you liked because your friends had it, and maybe their parents had better jobs, which was fantastic for them. But you as a child at that time didn't understand why it is that it wasn't easy for you to get your first pair of soccer boots when everybody else did, when it was time for school. You only had one grey pants, long pants, if you were lucky, and a grey shorts. Why was it like that? But as time went on, you know, I had the most fantastic parents. My dad's passed on 7 years of stomach cancer, Abrams, and he was a painter, bricklayer. He was on the building trade, but he took pride in his work, and he was an artisan of note, if I can say so.
Wow.
He loved terrazzo work. Painting was on another level because back in the day in Claremont, where they grew up, in Second Avenue, his father had a contracting business, but they could never own the business. It was their business, and the story so unfolds that the reason why we are Abrams today, it's not because that was my parents' surname, but it was a surname that the business had to go under. So I think that my great-grandfather, living and growing up in Claremont in Second Avenue, opened up the telephone directory and saw, well, that's a good surname, Abrams.
It sounds a little bit white to what you
Yeah,
said.
and maybe there's a connotation with Abram, prophet, and that was the surname. We actually Muhammad, and they had a painting contracting business, and it was theirs. But like I said, um, a bit of the apartheid legacy comes out there already, where a white man had the name of the business, but he was only there because of the name. But it was my grandfather's business. So we later got to hear that it was just my father, his brothers, and our cousins who are Abrams and who are related. Even though there are so many Abramses in the world, it's only us that are related.
Sure.
And just to focus on my father with the artisan, they took pride in what they did. They were the guys that used to go and work on the contracting business with a blazer.
Wow.
And a pants, because they were professionals. They felt in there. If you drive down Sea Point, all those massive flats on the beachfront, Rocklands, all the names that you see there, the terrazzo work that's all around there, that's still my dad's work.
Wow.
And it makes you feel good in that sense. And whenever he had the opportunity to drive through there, we never drove much to Sea Point at the time, but when he did, Bonjour was another of the flats names, all those, he said that's where they were. Because there's an episode he also speaks fondly about. It was on a day, it was quite windy, and they were doing the terrazzo work. It was cold, and he fell a floor down. But like it so happens, he fell and his arm hooked on the next floor through the window. And he always had a weaker left arm, and that's how he survived. But that was a story to be told, and that's my dad and his brothers in a nutshell. They could paint a wall and make it look like as if it was wood. And it was just using paint and a brush. That was the type of,
they were actually
artisans.
They were artists.
But they were amazing, and they took pride in the work. And that's why I'm a teacher today. Because my dad always said, los die bossel af. Dis is vir jou. And so it went with all the brothers, because at that time we think, why doesn't dad want us to help him also? It was all because what they didn't have, they wanted us to have. They wanted us to study hard and have an education. They wanted us to be successful in the sense, other than their success in they didn't want us to have hard labor of work that they went through. But growing up in this garage, we spoke about role models, and today, well, it was just a birthday a few days ago, my mom, Fatima Abrams, 83 years old. If you speak about phenomenal women, and I'm not saying this because it's my mom, I'm saying it because there are many others that would concur with what I would say, is that after traveling and moving out of the garage, we moved just across the railway line to Birdwood Street, where St. Columbus used to be.
Yes.
And Carson Avenue. That's where we spent the next good years of our life. So it wasn't way out or anything. My mom used to work in the clothing industry, Salt River. And Cantley was the name she worked for. My mom used to go in the train from Athlone train station to Salt River. That was a transportation. She would have these carrier bags where I think and I don't have to think actually, both mom and dad, but more mom, the need to help others, I picked up from her.
Wow.
Because remember what I told you is that we lived in a garage, but from that garage came the best of samosas, the best of pies, the best of kusistas. And if the girls at work who worked in the factory asked, and she was passionately known as Auntie Baby, maak vir ons 'n paar samosas, man. It was never a problem.
Sure.
That's how we got by. Mom making samosas, kusistas selling it month in, the girls paying it at the week, at the end of the week paying them. And then we as 12, 13-year-olds would wait at the jewelry shop outside of the Athlone train station, Auntie Baraldia, the Ryan jewelry shop. We befriended her, and we would wait there from 2:30 in the afternoon, because the factory closes at 3 o'clock. And we know by 3:25 the train would pull in, and we'd go and we'd help mom with whatever it is that she'd bring us. And to wrap up the story with the living within the garage, is that just to point out that, and I tell my learners every day, it's not about what you don't have, it's making use of what you do have. And it made us so much better of people, knowing what it is not to have. So now that we have, I just feel it makes it so much easier to give, because you know what it is not to have. But there's one thing that I live by, is that on a Friday evening, I don't know if you can remember, but on a Friday evening it was Squat Cars.
Oh yeah.
On the radio.
Oh yes.
And Jet Jungle.
Springbok
Radio and Jet Jungle.
Radio.
And we had those ivory buttoned radio, you know, the big ones, and
yes,
we had
yes.
an LP player in as well.
Oh yes.
And on a Friday evening was the evening that our parents really tried to just make us feel special. And what was special for us? Fish and chips on a Friday evening. And that fish and chips, we'd sit in the kitchen, in the middle of the kitchen, and we'd share it with the family, whilst listening to Jet Jungle and Squat Cars, and that was our entertainment. And one evening, my dad told us, and this will stay with me for forever, is that he said, you might think that you don't have, but just remember, as your parents, we can clearly tell you that we owe nobody a cent. Or in Afrikaans hulle sê, ons het niks skuld met niemand nie. That's why we, as happy-go-lucky people as we are, everything else will come in its time. At that time we couldn't understand. And he said it wasn't their time, it will become our time. And that stuck with me. And they said, within this garage, what do we have? We have happiness. And people who have, they don't have what we have. And that's the family happiness. And that's to start off on that note, was just to lay the foundation as to that is what filtrated into my heart.
And to who you are.
And to who I am today. Because
made
today I still drive down Lady May Street.
Wow.
That garage is still there.
Sure.
Imam Solomon, the great Imam Solomon, moved into that house long after we had left. But at that house, something else happened to me. As a 4-year-old, we went to a wedding. My parents went to a wedding. It was a family wedding. And the busybody person that I was from a young age already, that's what they told me. They were busy painting the bruidskamers, as they say, and I was crawling around. And
in that particular home?
No, whilst living there.
Okay.
And then I had, they found me lying on the floor. I drank paraffin.
Oh no!
And rushed to Red Cross, and things that they shouldn't have done, they done, and all this. But here I am today.
Miracle child.
But I must tell you, Sean, I suppose that's why my wife married me, because drinking paraffin, she must have thought I'm on fire. So with that happening, and the way that I was, I was always the smallest in the class. I was always the thinnest, because it had an effect on me.
Okay.
And I used to be on this medication, but God willing, I mean, I'm here, and through all that, that's what underwrites my life. I love a challenge.
And you've literally got a purpose on this earth. You've
I
been saved for a specific purpose, which is great.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Look, from there I went to Garlandale Primary, where I also had a fantastic teacher, Mrs. Neft, and many others. And you know, we were there, and Garlandale was just this hub of activity at the time, and we still used to go. The first 3 years I was in the afternoon class. So remember when you could either go
shifts.
morning or the afternoon shifts. I was in the
shifts.
afternoon shift, and I was happy because we never always had shoes, but we went from there, from Garlandale Primary. Within that time, we had then moved, as I told you, and just across the line. And I actually went to, I finished my grade 6 and grade 7 year at St. Raphael's Primary in Lawrenceville.
All right.
And growing up as a young Muslim boy, I could have been an altar boy by now already. Because Sister Anna Marie, who played an important part in my life, could not understand why this Muslim boy were more interested in the Catholic religion than anybody else. You know, when it was the first Friday of the month, Catholics go to church and you give offerings, and we know when they ask, is there anybody who'd like to go up to the altar to ask for it and say a prayer? Find his hand is up, and I'm on there, and I was part of the choir, and with all that, Sean, that's what makes me the tolerant person that I am today.
Absolutely.
I can relate to people. It strengthened me as a young Muslim boy, because Sister Anna Marie ended up also speaking about me in the sense of, did you prepare for the fast already?
Wow.
How are you doing? Are you fasting? She was a nun, and she was concerned with me, but that was the relationship that we had.
I think just to intervene, I think myself and you more or less in the same age group. I'm a little bit older than you, but in our days, and my best buddy on school was a Muslim boy. We were buddies till matric. We lost a little bit of contact. We met up again and so on, but for 2-3 years, my best buddy was a Muslim boy. We used to share our bread. We used to share this and share that. And that tolerance was just there. And one of the reasons for that was that we learned each other's religions and we respected it. You know, he used to take me to Salt River. He had family. You might even know him. He's Ismail Davids. He was also an educator in Mitchell's Plain, one of the schools there.
Okay.
And then he went overseas and went to teach overseas. And I'm in contact with him via Facebook.
Sure. Yeah.
But that was the scene. You know, you had your Muslim friend, you had your Christian friend, and it didn't really matter because the tolerance were there. And it's fantastic. And
it was amazing because I got to see, because, you know, why we also went there was that every day we'd either get the brown bread with peanut butter and jam. That was staple, because from that time the department used to send, especially to the Catholic schools, boiled eggs, you know, your fresh milk.
I remember the
milk. My parents never minded at all, because the school was down the road from where I lived.
Absolutely.
And also I had something nutritious to eat as well. But I think that played such an important part in our life, because the infamous Mr. Lont, who was the principal at the time, who had a fantastic sporting history from you were going into top sprinters whose stories were never told, could have been Olympians. He was my principal.
Wow.
And in that small hall that St. Raphael's had, so much activity took place. I took part in my first opera for the school.
Wow.
You know, it was the operetta, and we would learn to sing and do shows like that. And that rounded me.
Built you.
Today, I can only thank the nuns and the principal who was there, because lo and behold, today, one is a public speaker, you're an MC.
Wow.
For 11 years of my life, I was a sports radio presenter, had my own sports show, started an educational program on the radio.
Wow.
Would have known that was part of the
what radio?
Voice of the Cape.
Okay, wow, fantastic.
So and what growing up, we had good friends. Shamil Albertine, the top filmmaker now at the moment. You know what we never knew? We never knew growing up about the real struggle, if I can put it that way. We got to find out about it in grade standard 8 and 9 in 1985 when the riots took place. That's what I can remember. But we didn't even know that Shamil's father was the infamous Armin Albertine,
Wow.
the struggle stalwart. We didn't know that the fence of our yard, Shamil lived opposite, that all the ANC activity that was happening, and we were in and out of the house.
Wow.
Next to them was an even more influential person, and his sons and I, we were all at school, was the A.B. Adams.
Wow.
Of the Sackers era, living within we neighbors, we were family. And growing up, we didn't know the significant role that these stalwarts played. We didn't know. I heard an interview when Uncle Armin was interviewed about, it was all about the forgotten Umkhonto Sizwe soldiers, and they had spoken about, the role that they played, how they had to hide activists, Dalla Omar in the trunk and all. And I was sitting and I was gobsmacked, and I'm like, I grew up in the front of Uncle Armin.
Wow.
I was in and out of the house.
Wow.
I didn't even know he was an activist. His sons Faisal was at Garland Eye with myself, and Shamil went on. He's now one of the top filmmakers, and
wow.
It's just so surreal that you had grown up with this history all around you, and only at this ripe old age to find out that these people were so good to you, that always opened up their doors. You could always just go there, and these were the people that shaped the country to what it is today.
Yeah, and in a sense shaped you as well, because you obviously had interactions with them. And
but we didn't know what was happening.
On a normal basis,
and we didn't know what was happening. So from St. Rayfields, went back to Garland Line, finished my high school career there. That was amazing. People like Mrs. Crowe.
To intercept there quickly, I know just offline we spoke about you were invited to Sinton. You can go back to the calendar. So let's just chat about that little piece where Mr. Swart and who was the other teacher that invited you? Because
I know you had Irafaan on not too long ago, but his father was part of the Sinton furniture, but they were there. Faik Davids was, and Raoul Allen, who's now in New Zealand, living in New Zealand. They were the sports masters over there, and we loved our cricket and we loved our squash. And squash was blossoming within the, if I may, the coloured schools,
the Brown community schools.
I'll tell you a story about Said and Sons, which is
I know Said and Sons. Yes, in Belgrave.
Maxim's Squash Club, as it is now, metamorphosized. That saved our lives. I'll tell you why it saved our lives, but coming back first, and I'd matriculated at Garland Line, and then another amazing person within my high school career, Basil Sneyer, also an activist. He then had said, Irafaan, you're a sportsman, and in a long story short, he said he'll assist me to try and get a scholarship to America.
Wow.
Now you must remember in 1988, it was like a no-no. How do you get to America? The way we grew up, never had money, but that was a dream. And this is one of the things that I'd really like to just elaborate on, is that I tell my learners as well, just not to digress, and most of my teaching career was in Mitchell's Plain. I always tell them, live out of the I live in Mitchell's Plain syndrome. Get rid of that, because there's nothing wrong with Mitchell's Plain. If there are people who influence Mitchell's Plain in a negative way, it doesn't have to be you. You must take pride in you make that positive change, So with saying that, we always try and change that mindset of how it is. And he said, Irfaan, do you want to go and study?
Wow.
I thought, yeah. And just at that time, I had dreams.
Wow.
I wanted to be the best professional squash or golfer because my dad played golf. And because it was in Rondebosch, they were not allowed to play on Rondebosch golf course. But on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, it's Caddies Day. So the course is closed and caddies used to use the course. That was our day that we would go with our dad, pull the golf cart, and we got taught how to play golf on those days.
Wow.
And later on in life, the odd occasion that my dad could go onto Rondebosch golf course, you know, for me that was it was a sad moment in there because they were talented people, but they could never express it. We didn't even know where Vanguard Mall is built now. That was the golf course. The Athlone Golf Club was there. That's why you get certain of the humps there. That was a golf course. It was a fully fledged 18-hole council maintained golf course.
Wow.
Then it was given over to a group of people and less funding, and I suppose that's where from 18 holes it went down to 9 holes until it closed. That's why it's so rich. I mean, Athlone Athletics baseball grounds there now.
Yes.
But that was theirs.
Wow.
But what did I have? They never, ever stopped me from dreaming. I was the dreamer.
Wow.
I had this dream, and they always used to say, "Oh man, are you dreaming again?"
Sure. But obviously you were good at what you did because obviously people noticed you. You know.
You see, but we could only dream.
Yes.
But we knew that dream was very unlikely to be achieved because
Elusive.
it was still apartheid during the time. It was also where, if I wanted to go, how was I going to go? Where's the money going to come from? But I had a dream. I had some form of idea of what I'd like to do and become, which is lacking in my learners today. They are too scared to dream. How can you? Dreams are free. You can be Superman in the morning and you can be Batman in the evening. It doesn't matter. So, coming back to the whole Sinton story, Munir Holiday and the likes, they will listen. When they listen to this, it will be reminiscent in their minds. And even Faik Davids, who's the Cobras cricketer, yeah, and Mr. Allen, who went on to play South African rugby, and they will be able to tell you about the story. So I passed matric, and in order to get a better mark to make my chances stronger of maybe getting the scholarship, there were 2 subjects that I wanted to improve on, and at that time you could do your matric again. And the friends said, "Hey, this is a good opportunity. Sinton could have the best cricket and squash team. If you come," and there was another friend or 2 would come, we'd have the best. And Mr. Allen and Mr. Davids were like happy about it because Sinton would get the
glory of the sport.
They spoke to Mr. Swats first, Terang's father. He was if you guys say, then it's fine. And they told me, like, I don't know on which specific day, but they said, "Come to school now, and then we'll just finalize everything, and then you can choose your subjects and whatever." Hey, I got to Sinton. The boys were happy. We were sending. They were. At that time, remember, there were no text messages or anything like that. But they couldn't wait to get to the squash course to say, Sinton's team this year will be, Munir Holiday and Andre Adams and Fani, as people know me, is gonna be there. So we're gonna rule the roost over there. And it came up, and Mr. Swats was there, and I remember Mr. Allen and telling Mr. Desai, "Hi, Mr. Desai, this is Irafaan Abrahams. We just want to know and finalize. Like to repeat his matric at Sinton. He's passed, but and Mr. Desai, that Desai stern look that he had, and at that time I was like, am I really going to be confronted by this one? Because everybody was scared for Mr. Desai.
Sure.
Because they had this authority with him, And all he said was, do you see that door? Turn around, young man, walk through that door and make your way straight back to Garlandale, and you're going to finish your matric at Garlandale. And everybody was like gobsmacked, standing there, and like, did this just really happen now? I thought this was all a foregone conclusion. And I didn't know. I wasn't even embarrassed because it came as a shock. And
and still no explanation till the day. but you mentioned that it was a blessing.
It was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it was a blessing in
disguise.
Because
I went back to Garlandale, Mr. Sneyer, Mrs. Crowe, Duncan Crowe's wife. I had the best teachers and the best year to prepare me for what was then to come. Because sporting wise, I had fantastic sportsmen as friends. Kurt Serfontein became an Olympian. Randall Hendricks, top athlete and baseball and hockey player. We do represent South Africa. I had the likes of, everybody speaks about Quinton Fortune, who went on to play for Manchester United. He was a standard 8 learner at Garlandale. He was a big boy for 14 years of age. But let me tell you, he had 3 other brothers. Peter Fortune, Colin Fortune, Dion Fortune. If people think that Quinton Fortune was a fantastic football player, they missed an era when Peter Fortune was at his best. Top 200 and 400 meter athlete, and 800 meter athlete. Wow. A football player par excellence. And if there's somebody that you really, if you want to speak about unsung heroes, if you want to hear a story of what Peter went through to get Quinton to where he is today, remember, we then moved from Athlone to First Avenue Belgravia Road after my high school years. Quinton and Peter and them lived in what we call the Blokke in Q-Town on the opposite side of Klipfontein Road.
Yes.
But we were friends because we had school together, so we were closer then. But if Peter must tell you the story of what he went through as a brother to get Quinton to be where he is today, people will be gobsmacked to hear the humbleness in which they went through and what their brother went through. But these were the characters that we had at Garlandale at the time. And I was blessed to have them. They were much older than me. I'm talking about Peter. Dion was a good friend of mine. And like I said, they were, if I may, I'll go out on a limb, they were 10 times more talented as football players than Quinton. Quinton had the size. He was twice the size of any 14-year-old, and he had speed. So you put the ball over the defender, Quinton runs onto him and he scores, and he had a powerful left foot. Sure. So we only had him in Garlandale for standard 8, and then obviously went overseas, Tottenham, through Tottenham's academy, went and there progressed too. Wow. But these are the friends and people we grew up with. So leaving, having not had the opportunity to go to Sinton and continue with their sporting legacy, we started a legacy at Garlandale High. Wow. That year, Peter and their team played at Athlone Stadium as Garlandale High's top performing team. We had so many sportsmen that have since then progressed. Eugene Molian, amazing. We had Lekay, that's now Bafana player. We had so many sportsmen that have come through the ranks, and we can say that I remember a teacher by the name of Mrs. Suji and Miss Jaffa. They were the teachers in charge of squash, and remember squash was seen at that time as a rich man's sport. Absolutely. Here we at Garlandale, we playing squash at SNS, and my attachment to squash came by chance. I was busybody as ever. My brothers played. Mr. September was in charge. I went there, and this was the words I remember it like I'm seeing it here. I came in there, snot Nissi standard 8, busybody seeing the schoolboys practice, and I was playing with the rackets, and this teacher came up to me and said, "Meneer, is jy hier om rond te mos, of is jy hier om te speel?" I had no option. Ek kan mos nie rond mos nie. Was ek nog maandag in die trap. Nee meneer, ek kom speel. I never ever played the game in my life. And Sean, it was like a duck to water. Wow. It became my safe space. Wow. In cricket, like I said, I was always the smallest, the thinnest. So defensively, maybe I had a good defense, but attacking I was just not the
You
build.
couldn't, and you
Football,
didn't have the power.
Football, yes, but never really got to the levels that you needed to be in the top team. But team player, always there. Volleyball, captain of the Garlandale team, the shortest in the team, but I always had a big heart, and nothing was too difficult,
and nothing was impossible,
and nothing was impossible. And besides my mom and dad, Keith Powell, sports teacher at Garlandale, whom I still are friends with now, he's teaching in Dubai. I just wanted to be like him. He was the teacher that picked us up at home after school, introduced us to volleyball, my brother and myself. He was the one that went out of their way, more than just a teacher, to just make us feel special.
And there were so many of them. Eh? There were so many, we don't give them the recognition, and they were great teachers.
They were great teachers. Keith was a Western Province and SA volleyball player. So in his own right, he could have excelled, but he just wanted the best for us. And I remember playing volleyball, and for me to just touch the top of the net was a struggle. But I played volleyball, but yeah, I get to play squash. And it's such a great leveler that you can be the tallest, the strongest, but that small black ball needs to be hit in a certain way in order to be victorious. And that's where my squash career just
and there was a special technique to squash as well. You had to sort of hit that ball to get it nice and hot, and it would be faster.
Never owned a squash racket in my life. Never had a pair of squash tackies. This is where good people like Ali Musa comes in. He's now one of the South African baseball coaches, retired now, who, when we had to go on for the tournament, they would just hear we're going on a tournament, and they know our situation. And they'd come and say, Fani, just put this on and see if it fits you. And there's our pair of squash tackies.
Die squash tackies was special geweest. Hy moet wit onder gewees het. Ja. En as dit 'n klappe gemaak op die vloer.
Mr. Ridwan, I can speak about so many people who are deeply entrenched in my because they changed my life. And I told you about Salient Sons at SNS that saved us as good friends, because that was our space. If our parents looked for us, we were at the squash courts. After school, squash courts. 5 o'clock in the morning, squash courts. Training. Right? The owners at the time took us in. We ended up as high school and college students as having our own keys, and it was as if it was our own court. And becoming the first real standout memory that I leave with Garlandale was in that year, repeating matric at Garlandale High, being called up, being the first ever Western Province accredited squash team. Wow. Remember the blue tracksuit with the white stripe?
Yep.
If you wore that, then you were the O.
You past champs of champs now. You know got BB colors now.
And then to be told when we got our colors per se, to say that, Irfaan, we would like to honor you. You will be the very first Western Province Senior Schools captain. Wow. That will captain this team. Wow. And up to today, that team, made up of myself, Munir Holiday, Andre Adams, Dion Hugo, and Barnaby Bobs, we are still as close as ever with our manager, Fuad Wahi. Wow. We are as close now. Munir and myself, we've never separated. We still play our squash today. And why it was so special, because we were a youth team, a high school team who could compete with, at that time, the senior men's team. Wow. And I remember there was a tournament. Remember when Sakos played the centenary year where they played Western Province and various units?
Yes.
And then we were afforded the opportunity to represent Western Province schools against a Sakos Western Province team. Wow. Made up of top squash players. And at that time, growing up, I never had a mom and dad that came to watch me play. And many people in my career, when they asked me, said, how do you pay? They could never, because on a Saturday they still had to work. And if I had entered in a tournament as a 16-year-old, in a senior men's tournament, because there weren't many junior tournaments, they would know my progress through friends.
Yeah.
But they never ever would show me or tell me, because for them my education was important. They didn't want me, they didn't not encourage me,
Yes.
but they didn't want me to be
Because
unbalanced and
you
think of the
concentrate
sport.
too much over there.
But coming home with a trophy, winning a tournament,
Wow.
I could see that
pride.
that pride in my parents' eyes.
Wow.
And how they just, because remember I told you my mom worked in the factory? It's up to today, it's still a joke. But my kit was always extraordinary. I'd wear the most luminous colors, polka dots, you know, those toweling material. Mom would make me a shorts.
Wow.
Mom would make me, I'd say, Mommy, I like that material, and she'd make me because we couldn't buy, but she could make it for me.
Wow.
If you ask Munir and the friends what it was, and this is just, thinking about it now, that was just the character that I was.
Sure.
I love humor. So going onto that court looking like a clown,
And the nice part about being the clown, you were actually quite good. you were good. Sometimes you be the clown, but you're not good at something.
But I must quickly come in here and say that my father, who had played his sport in his day as golf, also told us to always be humble in defeat as well as humble in victory. So it was a clown, the way you look, but never clowning around and showing somebody else.
That's right.
I think what helped me a lot was I was always underestimated. So that was always a draw card for me.
Like
so people look at me, or used to look at me on face value.
And like you said, you were small and thin.
Sean, if you want to know what thin was, and the wind blew past me, man.
So you come and you see this boy and you check, no, man, this guy's got no chance.
And that was my trick. And when that happened, and then through the school said, listen, squash is growing all over the world. Besides golf that you want to go, why don't you try and get a study abroad? And
just before you get to that, you brought in some medals here.
Yeah, that's going to come.
It's still going to come. Okay, so we on the.
So we're finishing high school now, and by then already we were working within the community through our parents. Mom would say, listen, we need to go and help out over here, and if there was a wedding, you're going to help out at the wedding, and so. And in the same breath, I didn't get the scholarship to go overseas.
Okay.
What was plan B? I applied at Hewitt College of Education. I got in, and somebody told me, look, that's the best move you could have made, because remember all the sporting greats at the time passed through Hewitt. Yeah. So they were teachers and they were heroes within the sporting fraternity. I mean, I can name Duncan Crowley, the Faik Davidses, all the sporting greats that they were all came through Hewitt, right? So they were saying, you have the best of both worlds. You'll still be able to excel in your sport, and you'll get a professional qualification where you would be guaranteed a teaching post through.
And a good job, basically.
And they said, listen, you have the bubbly personality, you have what it takes to be a teacher, you'll fit in.
Absolutely.
I think it was the best decision ever made. But everything just fell into place. I remember Mrs. Cookson. Oh, I love her so. She's still alive today. Miss Cookson told me in that matric year. Matric year, she asked me what I'm going to do. I said, yeah, bro, as ek die scholarship kry nie, she was my Afrikaans teacher. Dan gaan ek Hewitt toe en ek gaan PT doen, practical space. She laughed. Ek dink hoe lag. Sy sê, maar ding soos jy, hoe gaan jy die gimnastiek doen? Jy sal dit nooit kan doen nie. That was my catalyst.
Okay.
She was my catalyst to become a PE teacher, because what people didn't know at the time, to become a PE specialist teacher, you had to have 10% average marks higher than your grade.
Sure.
It wasn't the other way around.
Wow.
It was a very, very sought after career to go into. It was
Wow.
PE, music, and art.
Wow.
If you wanted to specialize in that, because you had a special diploma that came, it was called the D3, the third year diploma, specialization.
Wow.
So I specialized in PE.
Physical.
I had friends like Kashif, as in they did art, fantastic artists. And then we had a good friend who was family of Nifa van der Skyf, the guitarist. He became a fantastic musician in that. So you had to have a very high pass percentage to get into that course.
Wow.
And I got in.
Wow, well done.
And I told you at the beginning, we speak through the mouth of God, so never is it a chip on my shoulder. I was the top sports student at Youth College of Education,
Wow.
where the theory was concerned, and we certain sporting
What year was that? Because I heard
studied,
you speak 85.
Yeah, no, and I matriculated in 88, but then again in 89. So my college career was 90, 91, 92, 93.
And I think you were a bit fortunate in the sense that you just missed the turbulent years of schooling. I think in 85...
We got it in high school, but we didn't get it at Hewitt. At Subside. And Hewitt, when we got to Hewitt was a brand new college.
Sure.
Remember, they had just built this multi-million rand
beautiful
college,
place.
So we got that. But there again, it was just so... Our cricket team, unification just took place.
Wow.
So it was all the colleges and universities together. And here we were from a colored school, now we all took... Nou spelers teen NKP.
Ja, nou is dit oop.
Die Universiteit van Pretoria.
Wow.
And you must know they were top Northern Transvaal at that time, cricketers and that. And here we went along and we went on this journey to go and play in the first ever unified cricket week. But you never went as a province, you went as your college. It was funny, man, because we went, we were thumped. We came onto the cricket field. It was so pristine. We were looking at the field more than concentrating on the game because we never had facilities like that before. And then we went to play in our second year. We went to play in Johannesburg. The first year was in Cape Town.
Did you have success? Did you win?
I'll tell you now. And then we went to Johannesburg, and our lecturer couldn't go, and one of the students went with. That is a joke in that also, because we had to pay X amount of money. The bus picked us up, and we paid I remember distinctly, it was 750 rand, but it was a lot of money. We paid it to this man. I'm not going to mention his name. We paid it to him. He's a prominent man in the community now. We paid over our money, and off we went to Johannesburg, stayed in the hostels, and we had an amazing crew. Gulam Talib, Michelle Isaacs, Dion Newkirk, Fabian was the SA hockey ladies coach. Gregory was in that team. Noor Ladi was in the principal of Thornton Road Primary. He was in that team. So much successes on that trip. I mean, we played a university from Bloemfontein and played at Queen's.
Wow.
Pristine ground. Gulam Talib scored 150 odd on that day, and I scored 50 odd. It was in the August back home. We had a 200 and odd rand partnership that day. Wow. And that was reported in the August, and we just had an amazing, and Michelle and Gulam got called up to the first unified students. Michelle in the B side, and Gulam. But the joke was, and we went to the Wanderers because India was touring at the time, and the Indian captain, that time we could still go onto the field at lunchtime and play on the field. And when they came onto the field, we still took photos with the Indian players. And lo and behold, we didn't win the tournament. Came back home, and on the bus home, just before we got home, this prominent man in the community now said, "Guys, you guys did extremely well. And as your manager, I'm giving back your 750 rands.
Wow.
And we're like, okay. Come the next year, first assembly at Hewitt. Can the following learners please make their way to Mr. Pratt's office immediately? In assembly, it's packed. It's the first assembly. And it's the whole cricket team.
Wow.
Off to the office. He never paid the registration fee and the accommodation fee that we paid for. He gave it all back. And then they got a letter was sent to the college to say your cricket team had played, but they never paid the fees. Can we please have?
Oh my word.
And we were like,
and now you ate the money up already.
Yeah, we thought we did so well.
Yeah,
And we gave it back.
yeah.
And we were the laughing stock of the college.
Word.
And our first bursary payout, we had to pay back that money.
Word.
But it was so, today those guys still remember it as if it was yesterday.
Word.
Professionals to a T, getting paid, coming back.
Wow.
And in the next year, we played in Cape Town. We had a phenomenal run. We came to the final. We had to play the teachers college in Pretoria, the Afrikaanse, and it was these in Pinelands where the old age homes are built.
Yeah,
that used to be
the
City's
back,
grounds.
I remember that.
It used to be there, and couldn't play. It was rained out, and we shared the trophy at that time.
Wow.
So I'm gonna fast forward through Hewitt, lots of successes. I started playing hockey at Hewitt. Becoming a Western Province hockey player.
And I think just to interrupt, Irafaan, there was one thing that especially for your students that they can take from this. The one thing that I want to mention is that if you enjoy school,
Sure.
you will do absolutely terrific at school.
That is where we grew.
Absolutely.
That's where we got to
Absolutely.
find out everything in life. I started living when I walked into college because it was no longer school. It was something to a point where I could even say I wasn't prepared for, because we were always protected. There, you weren't protected. You were
a big
own.
person.
The only thing that helped us and me personally was certain of the older students and the lecturers knew who were coming to the college, where the name and the prestige of the college was always paramount to them. So if you were a top sportsman and you were coming to Hewitt, they would welcome you to an extent to know that you are going to carry that Hewitt legacy. And that's what helped us as well. But I got to see what real life was all about. How choices that young people make, be it good or bad. I bunked my first time ever at college, not at school. We were at school every day. We loved school because the teachers made us love school. At college, everything just opened up. And I also had good experiences there, and I also had lifelong learning experiences there, because in my second year, sport was everything. Because by that time, we had excelled as young adolescents, 20, 21 years of age, playing senior sport now at that young age already. We had done well. So it was easy to just have an unbalance of sport and education, on the back burner. And in my second year, I think we spent 3/4 of the year in the gym, playing different sports and not going to classes. But our work went in, and the lecturer, I won't forget, the Afrikaans lecturer, Mr. Mr. Daniels told us, ja, julle PT menere, ons sal sien die einde van die jaar. So all examinations went in and out, but because we didn't attend class, we passed. But it just said course incomplete.
Sure.
And guess what, Sean? That year was my 21st birthday.
Sure.
So imagine getting that result.
Bad result.
And you must share it with your parents.
Sure.
They didn't even know. I never shared it with them.
Sure.
I had to pay my own way the next year. They knew I was going to college, but they didn't know I was repeating the year.
Sure.
Through friends, we got to, but that was a life life-changing experience for me. And it taught me that, you have to have a balance if you...
No, absolutely. If you want to achieve.
And what also happened was that I needed to show that I was better than getting a course in. And guess what? There were 6 of us, all top in that. I'm not going to mention names. And today, all of them have the highest positions within education that you can find, because it taught us a lesson.
Wow, absolutely.
And that's what I try to teach my students, that you can rather avoid going through all that by listening to good advice.
Absolutely.
In things
and this is one thing, and I just want to take this up, is they say wisdom is gained through experience. Now, a lot of the way that we grew up through experience, and we grow wise with that experience. And what happens is that we can now part that wisdom onto the kids, that they don't need to go through the same. And this is exactly what you're saying with your students, is that you've gone through this. Yeah. They don't need to go through the same thing.
And we had very little. But we made use of it. And I think I must say, when we started speaking, we just touched on so many things, and one can speak so much about it. I think that this wasn't even the focus that we wanted to speak about.
Yeah.
But by sharing this platform, is like many people have an idea of who you are now, but they don't necessarily know what you've been through to get where you are now. And there are many stories of many people that's just yearning to be told. And I thank you again for this subject, because we speak about so many things. We didn't even get to where we are now. But you had shaped me. My practice teaching was superb. I enjoyed being a teacher. And after that year of repeating the second year, there was an award at the college, the most prestigious award, and it was recognized not only in South Africa, but of those who were at Hewitt and lecturers who had traveled abroad. They knew it was the Abu Desai honorary award. There was some financial gain, but just to be nominated for that award was very prestigious. And you know what? My lecturer who I run with now, Mr. Daniels, was very hard on me after the year that I had gone through, and he was adamant that you have to. There was no shortcut. And having an amazing sporting achievement year that year, being the first Unitarian to captain the college's squash team, making the first South African Students Association squash team and captain when unification at they were so overwhelmed with our sporting achievements that year, because we played as Hewitt Hockey Club in the league, and we did extremely well there as well. And I had achieved a 90% pass for P with the academic and anatomy, all the theory subject that just, and and then working within the community, coaching as a student, I was awarded that award.
Wow.
And that was the first time my parents came. Wow. And they were there.
Excellent.
Sitting in that hall, knowing and seeing the pride in their faces, and just being there, and Mom, the tears rolling down her eyes, and Dad was, like I told you, on the building trade, very hardcore. Just to see their tears rolling, and just not you. They didn't know what to say. They just hugged me. I can never ever forget that moment, because we had then got our diplomas. We qualified teachers on the day, and that award is the final award that's handed out. The year before that, nobody got the award. And then I got the award, and it's today still something that one can treasure, because I share with my learners that if I quickly rewind to the day Miss Cookson said, "Jay, sal nooit hy gimnastiek kan doen nie. Jy's daar, maar to standing there, I promise you, Sean, that memory still lives with me today, to say that if you put your mind to something, you can achieve it." And that's been my motto throughout my life. Because moving on, my teaching career, starting at Leesbeek Primary, where I'm back at now. I started teaching in Johannesburg. I was on holiday and I never had a post here. My cousin said, "Hey, come in, let's just go and see." Got a post 6 months of the year. The sporting life there was amazing. I think I should have stayed there. I have absolutely no regrets in my life. I answered an advert in the Star newspaper. I lived in Lenasia. A Star newspaper was looking for hockey players, because and Mondio is like the Constantia of Johannesburg. Very bleak.
Sure.
And my cousin said, "But Irfaan, last year you were in the Western Province hockey team, and why didn't you go?" And I said, I don't have a car." He said, "Don't worry, call the number." And the guy was in charge, was the editor of the Star newspaper. I'll never forget him. His name, I don't remember or recall, and he's passed on now. And I called him, and I remember the conversation, and I said, "Hi, my name is Irfaan, and I'm just answering your advert, but I have a small problem that I'm a teacher, and I've just moved to Johannesburg, and I live in Lenasia. So I doubted if this is going to happen." He said, "Why?" I remember he said, "Why do you think so?" "Irfaan, I will come and fetch you."
Wow.
I thought, really?
Wow.
I said, "Okay, we'll meet." And Protea Avenue, I'll never forget, Protea Avenue was a Celtics garage. And I walked down Nirvana Drive. I taught at Nirvana Secondary, you get Protea. And that was and for 3 months, this guy picked me up. Wow. Drove me to Mondio to practice and to games on a Saturday. And guess what? And again, I said, not just with no chip on the shoulder.
Not to brag.
After the first 2 games, and being a hockey goalkeeper, nobody wanted to be a goalkeeper. And the achievement that we did in that first 2 games, the third game, they had a meeting and they said, "Irfaan, you will become the new first team captain." I was the only player of color at the time at Mondio. And then you did duty with the ladies hockey team. You helped out, and that's why I said I have no regrets. But I'm sure if I had stayed on, that aspect of my sporting career would have flourished, because parents always said, humble yourself, don't be what you're not. And I've stuck with that motto, and people that get attached to that.
I think you were blessed.
Yeah,
I think you were blessed through your life. You had a lot of lucky breaks in a way. And I think you've got the character as well. You're a sort of friendly guy. You don't try to be more than what you are, but you are good at what you do. So I think it was just a natural progression.
That was the thing, Sean. We never even realized, when I say we, because it couldn't be, it's just not an I. We were a group of friends. Some even more talented than what I am. But do you know that we never even realized how good we are, or how good we were. We only overheard what people had said about. We were known as, in the squash fraternity, the Fantastic Five. Wow. Dion Hugo was the first to go and play on if you call it, the other side after unification. We decided no, we weren't going to go. We wanted to stick to our.
I think there were some issues there still.
Yes.
Sarkos wasn't disbanded.
NEC and all of that. And I remember as a 17-year-old, I was in the executive of the squash board. So my life in the administration side of sport was kicked off from a early age already. Meeting procedures and how so we were blessed with that. Alan Bucas was our coach, and people like I said, Mr. Williams and them all taught us all these things. We had to come to meetings, we had to be prim and proper, we had to know our place, we knew procedure, and this taught us.
If I can just interject there once again, we spoke earlier on. I had an interview, or like the first interview that I had starting this thing was with Donnie Jurgens, which you probably know.
What an amazing guy.
Yeah. So Donnie is now South African chairperson of the Gymnastics South Africa. And what he said, and it goes back to what you're just saying, and that's why I just want to relate to it, is that we were trained not at varsities, but literally off the ground. And like you said, in procedure, in the rules of the game, it's nothing that a college or varsity or school could ever teach you. It was to do with being there and actually learning on the job, as it were.
Today we coaching different sporting codes. Later in life, we got to go to actually do certain courses. But we were coaching from 19, 18 years of age. We were coaching already because there were no other coaches. But what we were taught, we imparted with others. And that's how easy it was given to us. And we knew we could never go through life doing this.
Yeah.
It was always a shame.
And the nice part about sports, and I think this we forget sometimes, a sport was never about the eye. You know, you might be brilliant, but you could never do without your teammates, because without them you can't get to score the goal, or nobody can pass to you or whatever. And it was a big sin to take the ball from the one goalpost to the other.
Yeah.
So it was all about teamwork. It was all about teamwork. You stood out as one of the brilliant persons in the team, but at the end of the day, you had to work together to get to a common goal.
It really culminated after 5 years of teaching. I then decided, my dream again, I wanted to play squash and hockey and cricket. I wanted to play it where the sport was born, and I wanted to go to England, and I wanted to test myself over there. And yet again, it was my dream, and everybody, quoted and laughed and said, Irafaan, how are you going to get to England? I mean, there's no way. And then playing action cricket, and every June we'd go down to play in the Nationals in Durban. Within, everything opened up, and I don't know if you recall, from the more affluent schools, the learners used to go on a working holiday.
Yeah.
We could never go on that, but it had opened up by then.
Yes.
And I got to find out about this, and I said, Mommy, is it okay if I go and teach overseas? She said, the only time our family leaves the shores is if they must go for Hajj, for pilgrimage. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, the idea that I had to go and study in America was, what did they tell me? They encouraged me, but what did they say? No. They gaan vir jou vergooi.
Yeah.
You're going to lose yourself. They didn't mean it in a bad way, because that's how we grew up. Your Islam, the mosque and your prayers. In the church, it was, don't forget Sundays.
And it was the typical West culture.
Yeah.
It was wild. And
our parents were like, no, this is the way we want. So I come along and I tell them, I've got a post. And I'm telling them I want to go overseas. And they're like, Irafaan, people study to become teachers and nurses. Or you're going to work in Old Mutual. Those are the three things that and if you got it, that's where you must be. And no, Mommy, I can't. Can I? And look at this, and you talk about lucky breaks. And in the same week that I must leave to go to England, I was at Dryden Street Primary teaching there. And the principal calls me into the office, not knowing that I'm going yet. And she says, Irafaan, I just want to give you the news that you're going to become permanent. And I'm sitting there. I know my flight is booked for next week. I will still tell you that I'm.
Oh gosh.
And I eventually tell her, and she says, "Look, the choice is yours. But look how I get to that. You must have 15,000 rand in your bank account. Sure.
Just to
maybe
show
just a signature to show that you can get that you're
that
not
you're
going to
come
be
back.
living.
You're not going to stay there.
I didn't have a cent. I didn't even have a proper banking account.
Wow.
And my friend Wahib Slami and all my friends, I said, guys, I'm gonna ask you something. You might think I'm gonna it's a scam, but listen to this. This is what I'm gonna do. I need and Sean, I promise you. I said, I need 5,000 from you, 5,000 from you, and 5,000 from you. Put it into my account, and that was no EFT. They had to physically give me the money, and I had to put in. I said, listen, I just need the money in the account for one day. The manager must sign and give me a printout that is my money in the account. As soon as he gives me that, I'm going to give you money back again. Hey, they looked at me because they had all just started working, teaching. They gave it.
Wow.
I never had a blue. Wow. Sure, if I say I didn't have a cent on me because my parents lived with me all my life. Wow. I was the last to get married. So they were always my response, and it was never a burden. It was happy-go-lucky. And it happened, and I got my visa. Wow. And I got even, and we were playing in Durban, I remember, and then the teaching, you had different agencies, but that one was the UK agency was based in Durban, so they were recruiting teachers from South Africa, but it was based in Durban, and I was there, and I went in. They did an interview. Before I got back to Cape Town, I got a reply. You got a post when you get there. You need to book your tickets and everything. I still got those slips, by the way. And off I went to England. Don't know where it came from. Parents were gobsmacked. The week before, my elder sister, my dad was previously married. His first wife passed away of cancer, so I have two elder sisters. Okay. The one had immigrated with the whole family to America the week before I left for England. So here I am, here I'm going, and I'm going to fast forward here. It was breaking the mold and the ice for the rest of the family. And I knew I had a responsibility that if I mess up in the sense of allowing myself to get carried away in what people say,
or just not doing what you were supposed to do.
I know the next generation of the family is not going to go because they're going to use me as a yardstick.
Absolutely.
But again, not lucky, Brett. Sure. I truly believe, through the mercy of God, I end up, and this is fast forwarding really now. Earl's Court was my first place I stayed at, in Earl's Court, at the agency's headquarters for 2 days. I had a post as a relief teacher, so 2 days here is there. I end up meeting a friend that lived in Belgravia Road, and they were just starting a private school. Wow. And he said, Irafaan, you're working, I know the money's a bit better, but come teach here at our school, man. Wow. There was a private school. They just started in South London, in Tooting. And I say, you know what? Yeah, okay, I'll come teach there. Now you must remember at that time, teachers were paid, South African teachers were paid £90 a day. But that was still at the rate of R8 per pound. Okay. But which was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And but I made a vow that I was never going to go and kill myself to earn pounds in order to. No, it was.
It wasn't about that. You wanted the sport.
I wanted to teach and I wanted to play sport. That was what I was going to do. But here I was getting this, and Habib Kaji, he's now one of the head managers at Islamia College, and he took me in, and there were two young girls whose father said, "You look after my daughters." They went with, and we stayed in his front room. I started teaching at the school, which is now an established government-funded private school. Wow. And we started things that they never had. South African, Cape Town, Kotsoki, starting all this, and the way the kids related to us. But from there, I thought, and again, first newspaper, Habib said, Irafaan, they're looking for squash players at Spencer Squash Club. The club has been closed for a couple of years. They refurbished. Amazing. I end up in South London playing for a team that was coached by family of the Jansher Khan, the top squash player of the world. Of his family were living in London. We were myself, a guy from New Zealand, a young girl from New Zealand, a Pakistani, and myself. And showed us the ropes. It was so surreal. We were sending messages home that Mom and Dad and Munir and my friends, do you know that I'm so fortunate that I'm being coached by one of the top coaches in the world. And the opportunities here, they didn't see color. I went to try out at a club called at Spencer Cricket Club. Spencer Cricket Club is a all sports club like Western Province Cricket Club.
Yes.
It was grass courts, tennis,
yes.
And the club was closed. We revived the squash club, the council, refurb, and again, just so happens, I become the head coach of the club.
Oh my goodness.
There's good and bad with this, Sean, because there were so many other South Africans living there. I had won a tournament in England, the Spencer Squash Club tournament. And like I say again, I had to pinch myself because these people never saw color. They just saw a squash player.
They saw the player.
And for me, it was also something I had to get used to because we were always looking at the color first
and
before
also pulled back here. You couldn't.
They couldn't understand. You never played for your country. I said no, we weren't ever given the opportunity.
Wow.
And this is where the history and where I think the soothing and the calmness of a democratic South Africa allowed us to come to peace and at ease with that, because here we were living examples of what we had gone through. And Peter Arkel was the head of this club. He was a top photographer, and he took me under the wing and he said, Irafaan, you have nothing to worry about. Do you know what? They paid me more than my teaching job, and I didn't even ask to be paid. They paid me. I was given the keys to the facility.
Wow.
Just like that. No questions asked.
Wow.
But there was a sad part to it also, that the South African fraternity that were in the area and frequented the courts were your more affluent, if I may use the term, white community, who had been in England for a while now. And doing the coaching, I used to coach on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and for people who wanted extra coaching on a Friday, then because I was made in charge of this, and they'd come and they'd actually not want to train with me.
Wow.
Because who is this young coloured boy that's in charge of it? Who's he to
come tell me? Us? And they're already arrogant from coming from South Africa.
And guess what? Just what our parents instilled in us broke them down. It was never confrontational. I was never going to get into a fight or a debate.
Almost a tit for tat, almost like.
We won them over with love.
Sure.
Love for the game. Love for what we had grown within that club, where every single body from no club, they couldn't cope with the number of people who came to play. Because we made the atmosphere such that if you were a better player, it didn't mean you couldn't play with a lesser player, because that's what I tried to instill. I told them that's how we grew up.
And I think one thing about sports, and I think this was Sarkos's thing as well at the time, is that sports break down barriers. Because here, you can be any color. It doesn't mean that you're better. You can be learnt at the school that you're better than that person, but if that person meets you on the sports field, he will beat your ass, and it doesn't matter what color he is. You know, so this is where sports can transcend, and still today, you know, where you look at people and you look at this thin little guy, this mild guy that can't do gymnastics, but get him on 100 meter or get him on the squash court, he'll beat your ass.
But look how it was there, and then it came to a point where it brought people together. All those youngsters who came after we went to do the 2-year working holiday days, more came.
Okay.
And on a Friday night was the Cape Town get together, because Peter Arkel knew all those who were from Cape Town. On a Friday night, they'd pay for the lights, but the facility was ours to use.
Wow.
And they loved the atmosphere.
Wow.
So you'd come in and say, Peter, this is a guy who lived 2 roads away from me. He's here now. And there were friends of ours who came over, not for
Tell
sport.
me quickly, what year was this?
That was
in the 90s already?
No, I went 1998, I left.
Okay.
So this was 98, 99, the 2-year work. I went back in the year 2000 again, and I went back in 2001. Then I had a work permit that the school had organized for me and the club, and I didn't complete that because my son was born. I married in 2000, so I teach in England but on my own, and long story short, and then I ended up here at Rocklands Highway. They went over for the first European tour. I showed them around because my friends were all teachers there, and the principal, Mr. Hassan, always said, Irfaan, thanks for showing us around. If ever you decide to come back home and you need a post, and there's a post available, it will be. And then I came home. 2004, my son was born, and I wasn't there when he was born. But then I came home, and it just so happened one of the English teachers, she vacated a post, and before I could go back. I had a work permit, so I was okay. And then they phoned me to say, Irfaan, do you really want to go? We've got a post here for you. It can become a permanent post. And my son is just born. I mean, like, really?
Sure.
And I spoke to my mom and my wife, and they said, okay. I said, look, I think this is just meant to be. It's time. I've had my fair share. I'm still on good terms with the school that I taught at, so it's not like I left them.
At any time,
I got to go back
welcome
in England. I could go back because they knew where it come from. I'm still in touch with them, and then that's how it came.
And this passion that you have, you've got this passion inside of you, and you can see it. It comes out with your talking.
But
you can see that you loved what you do. And
Sean, what it is that you feel that you're planting a seed for others to come and reap the fruits of it, because what we were denied, we went out of our country, out of our comfort zone to show the people who we were, and they loved it. And when they loved it, we loved being loved, if I can put it that way. On the cricketing front, there was a guy I went to try it, and going to play cricket in England is a bit of it's not as easy as people think, because if you're from another country, they deem you as an overseas player, even though you haven't played for your country. It's just you can have one overseas player playing in your main team at the time. So you go on trial, and there is one, and usually the bigger clubs like a Spencer, they take an international cricketer and they pay him huge money just to play club cricket, not even county cricket, club cricket. So I went on trial. An ex-England cricketer, Mark Kinlock, he took me under his wing, and a guy, Khalid, took me under their wings, and said, come. They didn't know me from a bar soap. Went to trial and said, wow, fantastic. They were going to sign me, and then the club decided they're gonna sign a West Indian international player. So they told me, you can stay on, but you're only going to play second team. But we feel that you have the ability to help out another club playing in their first team. So don't stay here and play in the second team. Go and play and do the best that you can. And they showed me to a club called Old Grammarians. And up to today, 17 years later, I'm still getting emails, are you available to play? Knowing that I'm in Cape Town.
Oh my word.
So they, and I've got a book, the Fuller's Beer, they sponsor, and the English, the stats and datas, everything about every cricketer, and sending a picture home showing my dad. I was cricketer of the month, and in this they get a monthly publication, and in there stating Irfaan, best newcomer, highest run scorer. We could stake
and you never made the South African team, even after democracy was 1994.
No, but I was the old man. Look, at that time, being 27, I knew, Sean, this wasn't about. At that time, it wasn't about representing. I was representing South Africa over there
in England.
I was representing my community that we grew up playing on on the gravel fields on Kromboom Road. That was our cricket grounds, Garlandale Cricket Ground. I was representing the friends of mine who were 10 times better than me that never had that opportunity to play abroad.
Wow.
I was representing the squash and hockey fraternity who dreamt of playing on the beautiful lush grounds in England. I took that as my representation.
And I think also, further than that, it's this dream that you had, and this dream, I can take you back a little bit. This dream that you had, that you wanted to go overseas and represent your country, be it America or England or whatever, but that dream, that elusive dream for the rest of the kids as well. The fact that you could dream and actually live out your dream paves the way for them to see, listen, everything is possible.
Do you know how I grew this, Sean? The first cricket game I remember going to play was where I looked and I was the only player of colour. Because Old Grammarians is the grammar school. So all the ex-grammar school boys play in the beautiful grounds that they have, clubhouse and all. I didn't have to pay fees because I was the player that brought us up. And but after the first couple of games, it's scoring runs. They said, no, Irafaan, you just need to come and play. You just need to come and play. Sure. And I'll be honest with you, it felt good. Wow. It felt good in the sense that I was feeling that my mom and dad can be proud of me for the sacrifices that they made. And standing here, you know, you're playing on grounds that you can only dream of. Playing
and
going
for South African, that was a enormous thing because a lot of times we were deprived on our own fields and our own places. Like you mentioned before, you played on a gravel piece.
In East Kilfarnie in England.
Oh,
then my house family that I was staying with ended up being the son, the mother of the imam. I was staying with the imam of the mosque. He was from Cape Town, and it just so happened that we gravitated towards him. Don't ask me how. But his mom and my mom worked together. By the time my mom called me to say, "Hey, you must go and see Brother Ihsan," I said, "Mom, but look at me, I'm staying here." and up to today, we are still as tight and close as ever. Friends of like Wasi. But my sporting career in England was
terrific.
Nothing. It wasn't too much or too long, and it wasn't too short. It was just enough.
Just perfect.
Just enough. Everything that I wanted to do, in the sense of representation, bringing people over and seeing and paving the way for others. Because when I came back, one of the club players went over and he stayed for many seasons playing for the same club. But it's because of the relationships that we've had and built up. I ended up, Sean, just very quickly, in 2000, I was the Western Province under 16 squash coach here in Cape Town. Okay, and long story short, the guy that was head of South African squash at the time, he was a teacher at Bishop's, and coaching the boys. We had a good tournament. Then Bishop's offered me to be the cricket coach for the year, and then they went on the overseas tour. So we went on that tour, and this is a bit of history that's untold. But I was approached because Bishop's had to take 2 boys from a colored school or black school and a teacher from an underprivileged school on the tour. That was standard. So I'm not going to mention his name. He came to me and he said, "Irafaan, you work with me in the coaching fraternity of Western Province squash. I know you play, because I played first team cricket for Bluebells as well. I know you play cricket. I know you played overseas. Would you consider becoming an assistant coach with me and take the team to England on a month-long trip?" And then he explained to me, and you know what his words were? And at that time, I didn't realize what he was saying, but he said, "Better the devil I know than the devil I don't know." Meaning, I'm from an underprivileged school. He knows me, So it's better for him to take me than to take somebody that the school or somebody else selects to go, and he doesn't know the person really, but they must take him with. And guess who were the two people they entrusted me to select? I selected Rory Kleinveld, who ended up becoming a South African player, and Faisal Simon was a fantastic, he's now the director of cricket at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.
Wow.
Look how these two boys' careers turned out. And there were two colored boys that had to go with on a trip. Wow. The very first ball bowled on a trip at Charterhouse, you must drive 2 kilometers from the gate to see the first living building at Charterhouse. That's how big that private school is. The boys of Bishops looked in awe. They thought they had it made in Cape Town. Wow. It was a drop in the ocean to what they were experiencing. Wow. The first ball Rory bowled, pitched outside leg, and it hit the off stump of the opening batsman. And I'll never forget, the boys went mad. And at the tea break, the guy that took me with the head coach, he came over and he scolded at the boys.
Wow.
And I was like,
what's going on now?
It wasn't proper.
Oh,
you know, gentlemanly. And this is how you had to learn. I loved some of the traditions. At 10 o'clock, you'd come to the school in your blazer. You'll have a cup of tea and biscuits. Oh. At 11 o'clock, the captains will walk through the boys with the blazer on. They'll toss on the pitch, come back. I'll be honest, it was lovely tradition, because in England, those are the traditions.
Those were the style.
And but something happened on the trip as well, where it also shaped me in the way I then from there went and looked outwardly in my coaching careers. That we played the Sussex Academy at Arundel Castle. Now Arundel Castle has a pitch on one of the round outer walls of the castle. Now only the international cricketing teams who tour England get to play at Arundel Castle. We played on Arundel Castle. And their tradition is 45 minutes before lunchtime, all the senior management and seniors, you leave the field, the game continues, and there are ex-English cricketers who come, and they would welcome the touring party, and you'll have like I didn't know this. I was more worried about the boys playing well, and then one of the academy people, Sussex, came over and said, "Are you with the Bishops team? You're the coach." I said, "Assistant coach, yeah. Are you not? Why are you not in the lunchroom? Because it's unethical of seniors not to be there."
And where was the head coach at the time? Did he not even? He didn't bloody even invite you. What was his story?
And then it came that there was a very famous photographer whose son was in the Bishops team, and he went, and I wasn't. I didn't go.
Oh.
And it then sunk in that, why am I not there? And you must remember, on this whole trip, I slept with the boys wherever they slept. The two other seniors, they had their own hotel or what, but I didn't mind that. Yeah. But they had their own accommodation. I slept with the boys, and we slept in one banghouse, slept in. But that was the boys loved it. We had a fantastic relationship. And that day was the day where it hit home that, it's going to take a while I realized then that so many more barriers need to be broken. And that was the year 2000, when I just got married. That was the year I'll never forget.
The strange part, and you touching on something now, and we're going to have to sort of wrap it up somehow. We'll probably have to meet again and go on with the next story. But the one thing that strikes me with this thing, that was the year 2000. It was 6 years after democracy have been attained by us. In other words, we should have been sort of halfway integrated by then. People would have had the acceptance of different colors, and they should have accepted people to mix freely.
But here was the thing. In England, wherever we went, I went to where the prince and princess goes to school. We went to all the top private institutions that they played, right? Charterhouse, you name it, Wellington. The guests had no issues with me. I was just one of the touring party. They wanted to speak to me. How did I get involved? But my own two seniors always tried to, kind of.
And I think it was almost a jealousy type of thing as well.
I think it was more like, you remember I told you with growing up through a Catholic school and being exposed to many. I was okay in mixing with different people from different backgrounds, and by that time, you must remember, I'd been to England for 2 years already, so I was okay. So, and you could pick up how it was that, don't talk too much. He's not actually from Bishops. He's only here but they wouldn't say that.
Token.
Yeah,
as a token.
And that's what I told him at the beginning. I said, "Are you taking me with as an assistant coach, or are you taking me with because you must take a teacher of a because if it is that you're taking a teacher of a disadvantaged background, and that's it, then you must remember that you're planting the seed for others, and I'm not going to stand for this because I've been to England. I played there to the best of my ability. So what you were doing is not doing me a favor. I'm doing you a favor."
And the irony about this whole thing is that you were absolute professional. You were actually more professional than what
the
they
boys
could
were.
ever dream
I never
of.
had one issue with any of the boys. If you tell them doing certain routines, never. I had amazing people. Craig Sudding was a top university graduate also. Now, he was in that team. Rory, they were amazing. But this only struck me afterwards coming back. But on that day was the day that I could easily have just packed my bags and had left, because the visiting the home teams and management were extremely upset, and they made it clear to them, because they had found out that I wasn't told and I wasn't invited to come and sit. And when I came in and I sat at the table where the boys were sitting, they were totally upset, because no manager or coach sits and eat with the boys. You sit with a senior table. And that was, but I always took that just as it was difficult to swallow at the time, because back home, the friends and those who saw us off at the airport were thinking, "There's an amazing opportunity, Irafaan. Bishops, the top school." When I came back, they wanted to offer me a post at Bishops, teaching Afrikaans to matric, and interview, I like, "Guys, unfortunately, you can't set me up for failure, because I've never taught Afrikaans.
No, absolutely.
You're giving me a post, you expect me to teach matric. It doesn't work like that."
Like this, and I'm saying
you're setting me up for failure. Unfortunately, that's not. If you're going to tell me you're going to give me the two lower grades again,
or even physical aid for that matter, or something.
We became. And the principal was amazing. The head teacher was amazing of Bishops, but the Afrikaans HOD, you could see him in what it was, and I wasn't going to be a token.
No, absolutely.
Oh, and you talk about lucky breaks. Brilliant lucky break. My life at Rocklands High was the best ever. I became ill in 2008. I got something called angioedema, where my facial soft muscles just swell up at any time, and it became very bad in 1 year. I taught matric English, and by that time, remember I told you 2005 I started at Rocklands. Mr. Sant was amazing, making my progress through high school. And teaching a matric class. You must know, I'd wake up in the morning and my daughter wouldn't recognize me, because angioedema, the pictures I'll send to you, you can show. I don't mind, because we're now spreading the word of how to assist others who didn't know they had. There's no cure for it.
Sure.
I'm with Dr. Not Akuji, I'll get to the name now, and he saw to me, but for many years I had to just live with it. The only it's life-threatening, because if if your esophagus and breathing passages swell up, you can suffocate. And I've experienced something close to that. That's why I carry an EpiPen, an adrenaline injection.
Sure.
And my matric year, I'd stayed absent, say, twice or thrice a week because of the swelling, and I'm teaching matriculants. But Mr. Sant at the time was an amazing guy.
Wow.
He understood, he knew exactly what it was. And then one morning I just got him and I said, listen, even though I'm swelled up, I'm going to go to school. And I'd come with a Palestinian scarf, and I told my matric class, I'll never forget it. And I said, listen, if you wondered where I am, I'm never leaving you, soos hulle sê in Afrikaans, in die lurch. But I've got a condition. I'm going to open up and I'm going to share my life with you now. And we had an open relationship with him.
Wow.
I said, I'm going to take this off. Some of you are going to laugh, and I want you to laugh as much as you want to. Or some of you are going to be sad, which I don't want you to be sad, because this is me. I'm your teacher. I give my life to you, but this is what I have to live. This is what's come to me. And I remember I took off the scarf and I was swollen, and they just looked. And what happened after that, if one can say, is history, and it just made me at ease, where it didn't bother me anymore in the sense of me, because remember, as a teacher, this is my tools.
No, absolutely.
It's not like it can hide under my clothes. This is my tools. This is who I am. And they always knew me as Mr. Abrahams, happy-go-lucky. Listen, we got this to do, guys. We started the social club. For those you saw on the little clip, kids who never had a place at school, on a weekend, we'll take them to help all activities, the old age homes. Every weekend we were busy, and here is this teacher, where is he now? And you know what? If I pull up with my car and they see me with my scarf, the rest of the grades that I teach got told by my matriculants, today, you don't mess with Mr. Abrahams. He's here for us. He's ill, but you get. I got to find out about that later. Amazing. How I broke down my own stigma that I had about myself. Wow. Today I speak openly about it. When that happened in 2009, when it happened, it knocked me like a ton of bricks. Wow. 2011, I said, all the teachers said, Irafaan, you've gone through so much, you've done so much, and did you ever think about what would you like to leave behind as a legacy? And it hit me because I never thought about it, because we only go to teach. We teach for the love of teaching, involved with sports. 8 raters, you will tell you, we're on the field all the time. We're the last to go home in the evening. It's 10 o'clock and we must fetch a learner that the parent phones is not home yet. You know where they are, you fetch them. That was the life of a teacher in Mitchell's Plain especially. And that's why I love the community. You can make that difference. And when that was told, I was a sports radio presenter at the time, and a club, Iteco, had just started, and said, oh, you're talking such a lot about sport. Did you ever run? And I'm like, throughout my sporting career, when the coach said 5-kilometer run, you try and avoid it like a ball. But I went because they challenged me on the radio. I had to go. I ran my first 5K. Oh, it was the best ever. Oh, my God. It was my great escape, because running is my freedom. I think everything else.
You are a born sportsman. I don't think there's any other word for you.
No, and it's like that. I mean, I remember telling Mr. Hassan, I was teaching at the Rocklands when I with the Bishop's thing, and then I said, sir, I'd like to raise R1 million for underprivileged schools, because I know what we went through at the Rocklands. Can't we help other schools? He looked at me, he laughed, he said, are you bored? Is there something? But he didn't mean it bad. And I went to a few people and I said, listen, I love running. Running is my freedom. I want to use running to try and help others. And that's how the R1 million challenge came about. We gave ourselves with a group of friends, and it's not me, we were a group of friends. I ran, yes. They had ITA specialized there, Hassan Abdullah, Fatima van der Rede. amazing characters in their own right. And we formed a team, and we told ourselves we're going to give ourselves 5 years to raise R1,000,000 to help underprivileged schools. But the project is going to be that I'm the catalyst, but in order for people to appreciate what they have, they must also work for it, because to get something for free, you don't appreciate it like you work for it. So the idea was I'd run and we'd select a number of schools, we'll print cards. For every kilometer I run, if they collect, I don't want a cent, they get everything. Sure, we can do a program of this. And this is it. In our first year, we raised 260,000 rand.
Wow.
In the second year, by the start of the third year, now the first year was the New York Marathon. I haven't even run the Comrades of the Cape Town Marathon, and I said, we are going to do this differently. The only marathons we're going to do, guys, is we're going to do the top 5 international marathons. They said, Irafaan, where are we going to get that? I said, because Cameron Dugmore, we got to know each other through squash when he was playing for Satisco at UCT, the colored UCT side, playing in our leagues, and he was a white student at the time. We got to know each other. He was such a good sportsman. He creamed me, and the friendship just stuck.
Wonderful.
And he had done the New York Marathon for charity the year before, 2010. And I thought, I phoned him, and this was the day I phoned him. I said, okay, Mr. Dugmore, I'd like to do what you did last year. I'd like to go and I'd like to do it for schools and charity. Can you assist me? He said, Irafaan, I can't promise you. Let me see what I can do. Long story short, Ilana Meyer had the JAG Foundation. They received 5 entries, but they could sell the entries in order to generate money.
Funds.
I had to pay her 30,000 rand in 2011 just for my entry. Not my flight, not my accommodation, nothing. Just my entry. I didn't have a cent, and I said, Mr. Dugmore, are you telling me she's giving? He said, Irafaan, she's put one aside for you. Can you manage? I said, I'll take it. I didn't have a cent on me. But I made a prayer. And I said, God, just help me. I want to do this. I never had a cent. I'm going to put this down to you. I'm going to try and do it in 5 minutes. I went to a friend with an organization of which I became an ambassador for 3 years, Islamic Relief. So they're a worldwide humanitarian organization. I said, guys, this is what I want to do. It's not for me. You will benefit from it as well. They gave me the money. Wow. I went to a man that I'll forever be thankful for. You know, they had a travel agency in Primrose Park, and he's not well at this point in time. And I went to him and I said, would you sponsor me a ticket with accommodation to New York, because this is what I want to do. Your company will get all the... I could only sell me to whoever helped me. I could only sell mileage and what was going to get what at the time. And it was them taking a chance on just the ordinary guy. And you know what? I can only say shukr to Allah. Up to the... Not one person said no. So 2011, first time to America, flew to New York.
That is part of your dream. Got to
5th Avenue that you only see in the movies, and getting into the yellow cab. You knew you were in America. You knew you were in New York. My hotel was hotel number 373, and it was on 5th Avenue. I remember. I was staying opposite the Empire State Building. But there's a joke that goes with that. My brother said, if you go, do me one favor, take a photo of the Empire State Building for me. That's all I want you to do. And the next morning, after booking in, I said, guys, at the hotel, please show me the direction to the Empire State Building, man. I just need to... And they burst out laughing. And I'm like, oh no, what did I just do now? They said, Irafaan, open the door. If you look out of the door, there's the Empire State Building. So, New York, in New York, got to meet some of my ex-learners that I taught. They invited me to come and stay with the people they were au pairing with. Fantastic young lady there. I stayed with then one of the directors of guess who? Of Facebook in Atlanta. We went there. So 2011 was New York. We saw if 260 we could raise 260,000 rand. Why can't we do it? Next year was Chicago Marathon. Chicago, I met up with a filmmaker who was lecturing in Chicago, and good people who I still am friends with today. They were from Athlone. They were living. She was working for the embassy in there. She's still in America with her husband. They were from Silvertown, in right opposite where we live. I stayed with him, Glynis and Armin. They took me in. They took me to the marathon, the Chicago Marathon. We raised, I told you again, by the third year we had raised $500,000 rand. After the third year, so it was New York, Chicago, then we did Amsterdam. Again, that's a book we can write over there. When we finished Amsterdam, we raised $1 million already. Wow. And after Amsterdam...
Was this with your other buddies?
I go alone.
You go alone.
But they help with the organization.
We
did it extremely professionally. Wow. We never had a cent, Sean. Wow. Not 1 cent.
And tell me, did you do any good in it? Did you come anywhere?
It was just a matter of us being there, participating and finishing.
Okay.
It was, remember, this was never about me.
Okay.
So to run a 3-hour marathon wasn't going to make a difference.
Okay.
So you told me, Irafaan, you are getting an opportunity that top professional marathon runners don't get to run. Sure. So we done that. Then we went to Amsterdam. And then after Amsterdam, guess what? London came, another of the majors. And then I was fortunate enough being an ambassador for Islamic Relief. They got me the opportunity. I took my wife with, and I could show where I lived in England. Wow. Went back to the school where I taught. They welcomed me and all of that. So we basically raised over 2.5 million rand after the 5 years. Wow. In 2015, we took on our biggest challenge to wrap everything off. We said we're going to do 5 major things in 1 year. So we did the Comrades Marathon, the Cape Town Marathon, the Comrades Ultra Marathon, the Two Oceans Ultra Marathon, the Boston Marathon, that's the most prestigious marathon in the world. We did the August Cycle Tour, as well as, again, I went back to do a second New York Marathon. And Sean, that is one of my highlights that I bring back to my learners of Mitchell's Plain that year was I was the flag bearer to the opening ceremony of the New York Marathon. It's so big that through Central Park, all the countries, they give their top athlete the opportunity to be the flag bearer. You walk through Central Park, you carry the South African flag. I got to meet, the filmmaker Spike Lee. Spike Lee came over and he congratulated me and he said, and because as I was walking, there's this you'll see on this Facebook. So one of my friends saw it on American television where they introduce Irafaan Abrahams, a teacher from Cape Town, raising money, and this is what he's been afforded the opportunity. Wow. It was, I pictured my mom and dad standing next to me and just smiling. Because that was, a Kotsoki growing up from a garage in Athlone, carrying your country's flag. Wow. That for me was just one of the moments. And Uncle Yusri Friesler was there with his wife. They went over to run as well. It was lovely having people like that there to witness it with you. Wow. I don't even want to talk about there was a sad side to it where certain South Africans who also went to run. Now you see, when you get there to the opening ceremony, before the ceremony starts, they put 2 Americans in charge of every flag. So I have a document. So when I come with my document, I present my document, they verify it, that I am Irafaan Abrahams, the flag bearer, and then only do they release the flag. So there were some South Africans who were there because we all walk together. Whoever's going to participate, walk together.
Yes.
But you know,
you're just the front. You're the big.
But they won't get. So they wanted to take the flag, and the Americans were saying, "But you're not. You can't get the flag.
You can't.
And
special permit almost.
Yeah, we can only give this to the South African flag bearer." And they said, "No, but we want to take photos, and this is what we were told." And when they saw, you had to wear something traditional or from a heritage of your country. There was no way I was going to wear a sticky lappy and a sheepskin or and then I had a klopse gear on that one of my friends gave me. Shamla's husband is passed on now, and he gave me this coon gear. He said, "Irafaan, you're from the Cape Flats, man. Represent and I had this gear on with my Wuchi on it, and I had and some of the people wouldn't take a photo with me of my South Africans because they saw who the flag bearer was.
Oh my gosh.
It was a colored boy from the flats. Yeah. And they wouldn't, the others came and they took, other countries were like amazing. And the best part was appearing in, every year they have an official magazine. We were in the official magazine standing with the South African, in the New York Marathon magazine. Can you imagine where the journey had taken me? But to come home to tell my learners, to say, guys, if you don't take this as an example, to say that no matter how dire you think your situation is, if you dream it and you believe it, you can achieve it.
Absolutely.
And if you ask my colleagues, I never ever had an issue with any learner, and I don't say it because learners are all challenged in their own way. Some have different issues, discipline issues, behavior, but it stems from many other sources. But it was a pleasure because the children gravitated towards wanting to know what was the next thing we were going to do, Mr. Evans. What was the next crazy thing that you're going to come up with? I mean, we did things that you wouldn't imagine teachers and learners can do together. And this all stemmed from what it was. Ended up getting the nickname the Marathon Man, and only to know that it takes a lot to tie and run. It just doesn't come. But my life since taking on that running challenge has changed. I have the medals here.
I think you can just show it for us.
I have the medals here.
We're actually on 2 hours.
I mean, I'm going to share it with you, and these medals will.
Oh my gosh!
If you do the New York Marathon and you walk into, because Nike sponsors it, and you walk into a Nike store in New York, and you wear your medal around your neck, everybody stops, stands still in the shop, customers and they all applaud you.
Wow!
And in 2015, meeting the winner of the New York Marathon, Warby, there was a day. Then the next day I went and I got to meet him, and photos were taken. It was just that, and again, sending the photo was just to say, the better athlete, guys, the world's your oyster, man. You can do whatever. And it's
actually surreal.
Yeah.
It's almost unbelievable that you can do this,
When I look at this, I mean, from there, these are the Boston.
Can you just sort of bring it a little bit closer? I'm going to just bring that forward a little bit.
I'll try.
And then you can just show.
So that's 2011, the first one. This is the precious one. This was the year we did the 2 oceans. This is what the Boston Marathon medal.
And these are all stuff that
these are majors
that you did to raise funds
for underprivileged
for the underprivileged communities and underprivileged schools.
That's the London Marathon.
Wow.
And
you get this medal because you took part in it.
Yeah, and you completed.
Okay.
So today, through this and through my good friends, if you drive past Rylands Primary, they never had a school hall. It's through this funding that the school hall stands today. It financed the foundation of it. Fantastic. If you go to Islamia High, they raised, personally, the school raised close on to over 300,000 rand over 2 years being part of this challenge. And so we can go on a school.
And you're still doing this. This is obviously still an ongoing thing.
It finished in 2015.
Okay.
It was called the Million Rand Challenge.
Okay.
But that then sparked something else to where I am today, and that's why I'm wearing pink. Myself and a guy that a cancer patient here in Mission, Faisal Jacobs. Another story that you need to be told. We started an NGO called Lace Up for Change because we both love running. He's a cancer patient in remission. I have the angioedema, and I said, Faisal, to me, 24 hours too little. I don't know if I'm going to wake up the next morning. I have no guarantee. I want to do as much as I can. And we started this NGO. It started with called the Booba Run. So we make a pot of Booba. We'd run 5 kilometers from a point to the first point of distribution. And this was about 6 years ago. We are fully fledged, fully underwritten, registered in NGO now. And our main focus is people living on the street. At this point in time, throughout lockdown, we were working. We go out in the evening. So after teaching, I'd come home, we'd make the food. We've empowered youth to cook 100-liter pots of food so they can cook for their own communities, and we supply them with the ingredients. We've got amazing support in people and donors. I still have a full-time teaching job because that, I think, is the core of what we do. And Lace Up for Change is just an organization of people with good hearts, ordinary people. And we try to strive to make a difference in the homeless communities' lives. I took Rockland's High's top soccer team out one evening to show them that how important education is. And when they got to Wynberg, the homeless in Wynberg living on the street, there was a guy, and David was his name. And through feeding them, David called the team one side and he had a talk with them. And guess what? I've got that picture, so I'll share it with you. I've got it on a disc. David was speaking to them and he had a talk to them. The whole team. This was at 12:30 the morning, the evening. And he was saying, I'm David. I'm a UCT student. I was at UCT. I played rugby in the same team as Nizam Kar, who's a Springbok now. But I made wrong choices. I'm now enslaved in drugs and alcohol. I went to UCT. Look where I'm living today, in a cardboard box in Wynberg. You must remember, sport is one thing, but your education. He gave that talk. It was the most powerful talk ever. I've been with our group on the street where you find your own learners that you're teaching, whose parents you were looking for, living on the street, and the message they tell you, meneer vir haar sê, meneer het vir my gesê nie, hy maak net verseker dat sy alright is en dat sy matriek slaag, meneer. I swear to you, I will not lie to you. These are things that still haunts you. It haunts me in a good way that there are people who relate to a Mr. A or Fani or Mr. Abrams, and you can at least be that person's safety net in the sense of what it is that you're doing. And sometimes we don't realize the importance of how we carry ourselves in the sense of how people see us. We're normal, we're everyday people, but you take that responsibility with that. And the NGO and the work that we do, we try. Sean, there's stories that I can tell you about a lady who had a growth on the parade, and she asked us for help, and we thought, she's enslaved in drugs. Then Auntie Mariam Edwards, who in herself have lots of challenges, said, I'll help you, part of the organization. Meet me 7 o'clock tomorrow night, I'll try, we'll organize you into Grootskip, because she was walking like this. The growth was that big. She's living on the street. We helped her. The first week they had to detox her because she was a heroin addict. They did the operation. We took her back to her family, only for her family to kick her out of the house again because they wouldn't
trust. They can't trust
her. And here we're trying to. And it's stories of people who are with us and we're doing the distribution, and they meet their own family members that they haven't seen for years, that's living with us, their own neighbors' children who are enslaved in drugs. Those moments will be etched in my mind forever.
I want to ask you something, and this is relating to the type of work that you're doing. Obviously, it can take quite a toll on you psychologically. And the one part that we discussed also through other channels with the interviews and so on is your own trauma that you're taking. You're taking almost other people's problems onto yourself and trying to help. Now, there's a two-part question here. It's the one is, how do you deal with the trauma yourself to sort of just live and knowing all these things that's happening outside and so on? So there must be some mechanism that you can get to help yourself, obviously. And I think probably part of the thing is the running and the sport that you're doing. Then the other thing, and this is the more important question I want to ask you, is somehow we need to get to a point where we say, there must be a solution for these problems. I mean, we can't go year after year, feed the homeless, but the homeless just grow, you know? So the one, I don't know the solution. I'm just answering. I'm putting it at you for somebody that knows.
I think we've been asked this question. In all honesty, you sometimes you try not to let it get you. But what we empower ourselves with is, amongst ourselves, we realize that we can only do so much. We can't become superhuman beings and with a click of a finger just wish it away. I have an amazing family and circle of friends who help to share the load and I don't want to call it a burden, because it's not a burden. It's a burden if it's difficult to get up and do it, because it's a pleasure. And from the time of my mom instilling that, trying to do something for others, I think that from so many years back has made it easier to deal with. And we know that it's not just going to disappear. And when we speak, there are 3 things that we do as an organization when we go out. These are the simple things. We tell everybody who comes together that what we're going to do the evening, or what we do, is purely for the sake of Allah, it's purely for the sake of God, for no ego, for nothing. So we cleanse our hearts that what we do is through the mercy of God. That's the first thing. The second thing we tell everybody, if you're here for the first time, or even if you have been here before, get to meet and speak to 3 homeless people you would never have spoken to before. Find out about them, who they are. They have history, they have family, they've got a name, they must have come from a place. So give back their dignity by speaking to them. And this is something that in our community we have forgotten. These people just need people to speak to them. So we speak to them, and we try in that short space of time just to make them feel like one of us. And that's very calming and soothing. And the third thing that we do is, we say, if you don't bring anything with materialistically, meaning a sandwich or fruit or food, bring a smile. Because in Islam, one of the biggest gifts you can give somebody is a smile. And we live by that. And these 3 things, Sean, are the things that are the calming mechanisms that keep me level-headed, and it doesn't overwhelm me with what still lies ahead. And this we share with all our people. I share my burden because my grade 7s and 6s that we teach, even the high school learners, they become part of my world. I tell them about it. I show them the pictures because I don't want them to fall in. And guess what? They make the sandwiches. I'll send pictures to you. My grade 7s made sandwiches. It was a life orientation lesson. And on each sandwich, each one of them wrote a special message to the recipient who was going to get the sandwich. They didn't know who was going to get it. I asked them, make this a special sandwich. Give this, when this person gets it, they mustn't only eat it, they must read what you had written on here.
Wow.
I'll send you those pictures. On there was, when you eat this, keep me in your prayers.
Wow.
You are special. Don't worry what people say. When we gave that out, I'm saying it with a tear in my eye.
Wow.
When we gave out the sandwiches, of those homeless people who read it, they didn't want to eat the sandwich. And we're like, Fanny, hoe kan ons dit eet? Met wat die kinders so mooi geskryf het. Hulle ken nie eers vir ons nie. Would have thought a sandwich with a little note would make a difference in those people's lives. Today, it's 5-6 years on. Not one night, and I say through the mercy of God, not one night, be it 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning when we're on the road trip, was our lives ever threatened. Not once. I can tell you about miracles when we had a half a pot of food and there's 300 people. That food, through praise and mercy, God with the fish and the bread, it's true in reality when it happens in front of you, where you're dishing, and you're dishing, and you're dishing, and you know it's supposed to be at the end already. And
wow.
The blessings are just there.
Wow.
Stories about how people not necessarily only changed their lives, but that how it changed people's perception who came with, who had a perception of homeless people, how those minds changed. And I think it's just in ending with whatever we spoke about today, I think an educator's role is far greater than just the classroom. Because the classroom that I teach in is the world. And I share that with my learners, that what they will learn more from me of everything else besides the school books, what the textbooks say. It will set them up better for life than what I teach them about what's happening in the real world. And we try and take our classroom as far and wide outside of it as possible. Because for me, doing this is to share with my learners how important it is for them to be in the classroom, for me to want to teach them, because because education is power.
Absolutely.
Education is the thing that's going to keep them on the straight and narrow. An
And
educated
it's
person
also,
makes educated decisions.
and it's also that opportunity that they will get through education. You know, they now have options open to them. They can go to university, like you said, they can go overseas, go teach in England, or go study in England, go study in America. So that opportunities are now open for them, and often that others didn't have.
And for me, it's just to tell other educators that, and sadly, I had to work through this part. There's lots of sad moments also, but we try and talk about the positivity. Sad moment where people will judge you for every wrong reason than what it is that you're doing, and you tell them that, come and share my joy. Don't look at me as don't look at me. Look at the project that they're doing and see how you can contribute to it.
Absolutely.
It's not about me.
Absolutely.
I might be the driving force, but you can help the driver. You can be the driver.
Absolutely.
And if you talk about hardships, that for me was the biggest hardship. Having to win over some of your own colleagues.
Sure.
That judge you for wanting to live the glamour of it. It's not easy.
Sure.
They look at everything else besides what it is.
Sure.
And today it's grounded me and it's made me stronger.
Sure.
Because there are kids that I taught who had issues going through high school, that today has become educators. Wow. And it's so lovely when they come to you and you say, sir, thank you for believing in me, and
wow.
and today I'd like to do something that you had done for me. That makes it all worthwhile.
All worth it.
And to twin sport and teaching.
Wow.
I think and Sean, maybe it's difficult to me, but I'm living my dream.
Wow. I can see, I can hear,
I'm living
I
my
can
dream.
hear you're talking with so much passion.
Because I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning.
Sure.
I'll show you the photos of me finishing the New York Marathon the evening. Somebody from Cape Town had to pick up some. They couldn't recognize me because I was swollen completely.
Can you run if you in that state and so on? You're too sick.
Because as the blood circulates,
does it still happen to you?
Yes, still as ever. There's nothing you can do. You just manage it. You just have to manage.
Just manage. Sure.
Yeah.
Irafaan, I'm gonna sort of close down. We can always take. If you ever want to come, you can come sit with me and you can chat and we can record you. On behalf of my audience, for that sake, and of South Africa, we just have to say thank you. Thanks for the effort that you've put in. Thanks for the sacrifices that you've made, and also representing South Africa as a sports person overseas and a person of color. Like you said, you excelled in almost everything that you did, and you proved to the world like color doesn't really matter. If you're a sportsman, sports is what makes it, And I want to thank you on behalf of the students as well, because with your energy, I can see that the children will love you and they will listen to you and they will actually learn in your class, So the energy that you've got, and even at this age, sometimes you get a bit tired, but I can see you still got the energy. And thanks for being a hero. Thanks for being a unsung hero. Sometimes it's a thankless job, like you say, your colleagues there. This guy's want to brag, he's telling us about the sports or whatever, but you deserve every accolade that you get. And maybe just in closing, you can.
Sean, thank you very much for the opportunity once again. I think what I had in mind and what we wanted to talk about, we didn't even touch this, but thank you for granting myself the opportunity to share. I hope it's something that people can latch onto and show that, if you put your mind to it, anything is possible. And we pray that, that within our own country, things can get better. And with our NGO working with the homeless, we actually hope that we get to work with less people, but now we get to work with more people. And to ask those who are watching and listening to keep us and many other NGOs in their prayers, because it's tough out there, the funding and how we do it and that. And to my family and friends who supported me my whole life. Sometimes finally can get a handful with all these crazy ideas, but I just thank God that I have people like that in my life. And I'd like to stick to the little motto that we've come to know, and that I'm just an ordinary teacher trying to do something extraordinary.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Something I just want to latch onto quickly of what you said is that little things make big differences, and you start off small and it just grows into something, it balloons into something. And once again, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Irafaan. Wow.